Hello everybody, my name is Boulevard, and welcome to the grand finals of the Korean Deck Masters Tournament hosted by Riot Korea and OGN. Now, there's a couple of things that have changed between the top 8 and the top 4 now. So first things first, this is going to be a best of 7. Each player has brought 7 decks, with each region being allowed to overlap one time, and they're allowed to pick any deck they want going into the next game. But once you play with a deck, you are not allowed to play it again, regardless of whether you win or lose. And Ghost, it looks like the players have also been allowed to completely rework their lineups because of this. It would be a little bit strange if you were just like, oh, throw in 2 more decks based off of the regions that you already played. And it's like, that's not really going to work out super well. So the players have completely revamped their lineups. And now let's talk about Ghost's deck, because this man is in the grand finals of an invitational Riot Korea tournament, and he's got Poros on the field. He started off with a Lonely Poro. He's going to get down the Plucky Poro next. So this is... So... We've seen Braum Lux, and that's typically how we see this deck. We do see Aurora Borealis, we saw Lonely Poros, we see Mighty Poros, we see Braums, and I've seen this before as a Lux deck. That's not the most buck wild thing I've ever heard of. Aurora Borealis actually synergizes with her very well, gives you an immediate laser, and then the 2 Poros next give you another laser, but Ghost is instead running Garen. So going for things like that Genevieve Elmheart to take advantage of the wide boards, and... I'm really curious to see if this is going to work out for me. It is against sort of the boogeyman of the format and the tournament in Darrowing. So this is, if you're going to open up with Poros, this is probably not the matchup you wanted to go into. But out of any of the 7 decks he could have picked, Ghost opened with Poros. So either he's got something figured out that I don't, or he's trying to have a little bit of fun with this one. We'll have to see if this actually does work out. He's not looking like he's in a phenomenal spot. Shanghai does have a pretty nice curve here with that Draven. You know, take turn 5 off, bank a little bit of spell mana going into that Harrowing turn on 7. You get Darius down on 6. Actually, Harrowing's not going to be coming down until 8. And now we're going to see the blocks lined up. We're actually even going to see Elixir of Iron to prevent the kill onto the Mighty Poro, as well as preserve the life total a little bit. And... there's not a great transfusion for Shanghai here. He would have to kill one of his own units in order to take out this Mighty Poro. Whether he uses the Fervor or the transfusion, it's going to be the same result in that regard. And I don't think that's a trade that you're really willing to make, but it looks like it is. I would assume... yeah, okay, it's actually... oh, okay, so he actually is going to use the transfusion to push additional damage. Just wanting to play mana efficiently this turn, get his opponent as close to that 10 health breakpoint that he is 3 away from in order to turn on the Darius. Ghost's going to throw down another Mighty Poro, and I'd mentioned that Aurora Borealis is in this deck. He is also main decking copies of the Poros next, so maybe that's something that can play out for him a little bit better later on once you do get a couple of buffs, even just 1 buff down onto the Mighty Poros. And suddenly they start contesting things like the Basilisk Rider or forcing an Axe out of the Draven. You suddenly feel like you're in a much better position. And now Ghost really telegraphing this Fury of the North by attacking with the Plucky Poro. Is Shanghai going to fall for it, or is he okay just taking this damage? That would put him down to 9. There's not really any over-the-top damage in Ghost's deck because he's not playing the Lux, has elected to go for the Garen instead. And now Ghost has the opportunity to throw out this Fury of the North if he really wants to. I think that will get the Noxian Fervor out of Shanghai. Pretty likely to go face at that point just to get, you know, his opponent down to that 10 health breakpoint for the Darius on the following turn. There is potential for that to get blown out by the single combat as well. See Fury of the North lined up. Is he going to push damage with it like Shanghai did, or is he going to try and go for a kill onto the Draven? And it will be the kill onto the Draven, it seems. And it's still going to be 5 damage push through, thanks to the Overwhelm Poros. Now, does Shanghai want to fire off this Fervor? I'm hard-pressed to imagine him not wanting to fire off this Fervor. We'll probably even see the single combat from the Plucky Poro down onto the Draven at that point. So a little unfortunate for Shanghai, who does look like he's in a position to lose his entire board. Will be able to get out the Grenadier this turn before the Darius comes down, but with the Grenadier dying, that still only puts Ghost at 11. So will just be 1 shy of actually turning that Darius on. But now Ghost doesn't have removal for the Darius, at least not on turn 6. He does have Concerted Strike, but this Plucky Poro is going to be going back down to a 1-1. 1 Mighty Poro is dying, and that means he's only got 4 damage available with this Concerted Strike, and that is not going to be enough. So Darius will at least get to live until the Genevieve comes down, but with Ghost so far from actually proactively winning the game on his own, I'm not sure he's going to be able to kill Shanghai before the Harrowing comes down on the following turn, and will likely just end the game at that point. A Grenadier will be back on the table as one will die on the following turn, and that does mean that he will be at 9 HP going into that Darius swing on that pivotal Harrowing turn. We'll have to see how that one plays out. In the meantime, we see the Aurora Borealis off the top for Ghost. Darius comes down, could throw out the Genevieve Elmheart. That does play pretty well for him, gives him a nice block with the Genevieve as well as the Plucky Poro. If you, or, you know, you could block with the Mighty Poro, force the spinning axes out of your opponent's hand. Really up to Ghost here. I think I'd prefer to hang on to the bigger unit just in order to be able to pressure my opponent's life total, understanding that the Harrowing is not something that I have a phenomenal answer for. And maybe that's one of the reasons to go the Garen over the Lux, is that if you do have out a Garen and get down another, or if you have two Garens rather, you get access to Garen's Judgment, which can really swing matchups like this. It's a very good tool to deal with the Harrowing. You do need an upgraded Garen to actually be able to kill the Darius, but looks like Ghost actually, yeah, just going to stay in a little bit of a rough spot. Needs to pick up something to deal with this Harrowing on the following turn. Shanghai might throw down the Imperial Demolitionist, push for damage through it, Ghost. And then is set up for a block to help prevent any damage from the Mighty Poro. Clears the board for the Harrowing on the following turn. You really don't want to continue to develop a board into the Harrowing turn. This Precious Pet actually surprises me a little bit. Just setting up blockers. Ghost actually... It's so weird, because knowing that Shanghai has the Harrowing, if Ghost didn't attack, it would play out a little bit better for him, as the board is a little bit more clogged for Shanghai. I think the 4 strongest units are probably enough to finish off the game, so I'm not sure it makes too much of a difference in this specific scenario. But there, you know, there is a world where Ghost actually just doesn't go for an attack and tries to let Shanghai keep these weaker units on board. But not going to be the case here, and I think Shanghai's just kind of feeling out how he wants to throw out these blocks. And actually doesn't even block with the Precious Pet, just deciding that he wants to actually have that fearsome damage for the following turn, or he's going to kill it with the Demolitionist. Looks like it will be a demo kill. Does mean we're going into 11 mana on the following turn, so he will have a couple of options for top decks to play in the same turn as this Harrowing if a Transfusion were to come out or something along those lines. But Ghost has nothing for this Harrowing, and I don't think he can even find anything. The Aurora Borealis would have had to come out about right here. A couple of Poro Snacks would have had to have been fired off as well, and the mana just isn't there for Ghost. It's like that's kind of the problem with Aurora Borealis, is you do still have to play the Poro Snack, so he's about 17 mana away from actually activating this Concerted Strike, but does pick up the Genevieve Elmheart off the top. That should be an okay answer, not a phenomenal one. Is going to get that down. His block's going to be a little bit more efficient. Does actually have the Concerted Strike online to kill the Darius now. And let's see, that's an Iron Ballista, a Draven, the Precious Pet. The Precious Pet will get through its damage. Nothing you can really do about that. The Grenadier will deal 2 to the Nexus as well. You don't have a phenomenal blocker for... Actually, no, you do have a good blocker for the Overwhelm. You can block that with Genevieve as you are throwing a Concerted Strike down onto the Darius. So, sort of the perfect top deck here for Ghost, who even has the exact amount of mana he needs available to throw out this Concerted Strike as well. But does Ghost have lethal on the following turn is the question. And I think the answer is no. Yeah, it looks like that's actually just the same amount of damage overall. I feel like you might as well not lose your Poro, but this does actually take Genevieve out of the range of... So the Genevieve block onto the Precious Pet prevents the Spinning Axe letting the Ballista trade. We are firing off Concerted Strike onto the Darius anyway. You might as well throw the blocker in front of it. This does leave... Okay, actually has a Lifesteal Poro as well. A couple Lifesteal Poros. So we'll be able to... Did that Plunder Poro just get double lifesteal? Because they get 2 keywords, and I see the one has lifesteal and Challenger. The other one just has lifesteal. Did I get lifesteal twice? It could just be a visual bug on the other keyword disappearing, but... Looks like Ghost will survive the turn at 8, but with how much of his board he's losing... You know, he does have the Scout attack from this Genevieve. This could just be lethal on the following turn. This Aurora Borealis, unfortunately, unlikely to get played, but if Ghost actually starts off this game, this match rather, this best of 7 slugfest he's about to have to fight through with a Poro deck and beats the Darrowing deck, the boogeyman of the format, the thing that we have seen in everybody's lineup, nobody has really gone down without playing this deck. What are we looking at here? I know patch 1.6 just dropped today, so this is all a little bit off the table as the Braum nerfs did come through. They were pretty impactful, but for the time being, this is a spectacle for sure. And it looks like Ghost is actually just going to be able to pick this one up. I'm hard-pressed to imagine a top deck that Shanghai could have to actually... Oh, no, he does actually... the Imperial Demolitionist will survive, but he gets Braum off the top, so it doesn't matter. Oh, this is... He doesn't win this turn, as the Scout attack ineffective into the Spinning Axe. Oh, I don't think I like Aurora Borealis. I think I like Braum just a little bit better here, Ghost. We get Heart of the Fluff and the Elusive Poro. Very, very sort of unfortunate. The Challenger Poro would have been... Actually, there's no Poro that could really help here, as you do need the Scout attack to go through onto face as well. But not getting another 1-mana Poro, a little bit unlucky. He does get this Heart of the Fluff instead, but that's going to, you know, actually work out for him okay if he does find a Darius off the top of Shanghai. But with that Atrocity in hand, doesn't make too much of a difference. Overall, this is actually a really close game. It's really going to come down to the next couple of top decks. I think that Shanghai does have more things that he can draw to actually kill his opponent. Now that the lifesteal Poros are kind of out of the way, there's nothing that Ghost is going to be able to do. And do you want to offer up this... Oh, okay, just actually not even offering up the Genevieve. I think that getting your opponent to discard one of their cards is pretty impactful in a scenario like this. Doesn't even attack with the mine, with the Elusive Poro, and now that's going to be Legion Saboteur off the top for Shanghai to the Poro Herder of Ghost. And Ghost does main deck Lonely Poros and Mighty Poros, so there are a couple of things here. Ghost has the opportunity to go wide. Can Shanghai put him down enough to get him in atrocity range? The answer is pretty close to yes, but I don't think it's yes. Especially if he does play the Grenadier, which is sort of the premier atrocity target in terms of attack. He won't actually have access to the Spinning Axe, at least on this turn, to get that up to 4 attack and throw a bunch of damage at the Nexus. But currently, Shanghai looking at 1 damage off of lethal over the course of the next couple of turns. Can attack with the Saboteur, put Ghost down to 7, then next turn play the Grenadier, or play the Grenadier now rather, Spinning Axe and atrocitying it on the following turn is 6 damage. That does still leave Ghost at 1. And honestly, there's not a whole lot of difference between 1 and 2 HP in a matchup like this. I think that the Legion Saboteur is the only thing that deals that 1 damage. We see the Plucky Poro. Is that the only Poro left in the deck? Is he already out of Mighty Poros and Lonely Poros? Maybe he's not running that many Mighty and Plucky Poros. I know he doesn't main Heart of the Fluff, so that was actually kind of an interesting pull off the Aurora Borealis here. And Shanghai kind of in the tank deciding, you know, if I attack with this Legion Saboteur, I'm giving Ghost a Mighty Poro. Is that something that's going to end up losing me the game? The answer is probably yes, as you do know your opponent has these 2 Poro snacks. That is a 5/5 Overwhelm coming in at you on the following turn, as well as the rest of the board of Ghost that is going to survive. This 3/3 Elusive and the Mighty Poro will definitely represent lethal, as you only have 1 health units on your side, so... And as I mentioned, the 1 damage from the Saboteur, pretty unlikely to actually matter. You're either going to find 2 damage or you're not, and this is scary. It does set up Ghost for a better open attack lethal. And I'm trying to think if there's literally anything in Shanghai's deck that represents the 1 extra damage, but it really just comes down to, can I top deck something that kills my opponent with the Atrocity? The Spinning Axe is pretty much off the table at this point, since that is the play we're going for. Mighty Poro off the top. Does Poro Herder only draw 1 Poro now? Did they just fundamentally change the card and I just missed it? Transfusion, not going to be enough, and that actually is going to be Ghost picking up game number 1 of this series with this Braum Garen Poro deck, taking down the Darrowing. This is not what I expected. I thought Ghost might have been honestly trolling a little bit, maybe having a little bit of fun with this. Oh no, but that is lethal actually with the Transfusion into the Atrocity, and Ghost actually isn't going to find it. I missed the 2 damage that he was looking for in that Transfusion. That was everything that he needed, and Ghost is not going to be able to get it done. This is so heartbreaking. The top decks from Shanghai, getting him out of this one, finds the 2 burst speed damage that he needed. That's got to be heartbreaking for Ghost. And for me. I'm upset. Game 2 of the Grand Finals between Ghost and Shanghai underway here. Ghost taking a hard fall in game number 1 there with his Poro deck, almost getting the win against Shanghai's Darrowing, but now we're going to see a swap up here. Shanghai going for that Noxus, the Trifarian aggro deck, I think is what I've decided to call it. Aggro doesn't really sound right, but the Trifarian deck, that we'll just call it the Trifarian deck for now. And then on the side of Ghost, we have what I can only call not sea monsters. It's the Thresh Maokai deck that we saw out of Swimstream in Twitch Rivals, I believe last week. And the deck it didn't perform well in the 1 match that we actually saw him play it in versus Hyped, at least in Swiss. I didn't get a chance to actually check out the top cut, so I'm sure it performed a little bit better for him there, since he actually did win his pool in that Twitch Rivals. And we're going to see how it pairs up into the Trifarian deck now. There's not a lot that I think Ghost actually has available for him in order to deal with these high health, high attack units, especially since we do see the Avaros and Hearthguard in Shanghai's hand. That's sort of the nightmare of control decks, and Reckoning even is going to get a lot more value than you would kind of expect it to in a number of matchups in something like this, getting rid of all of these low attack chump blockers that Ghost has available to him. Literally everything in Ghost's hand will actually die to the Reckoning. The Culling Strike going to play big in this matchup, and I think Ghost is really not in a phenomenal position. It felt like during Twitch Rivals, this was sort of brought out as an answer to the Darrowing deck. While we didn't see it worked out versus Hyped in Swiss, it looks like it did work out for him in Top Cut. So, you know, we already missed that matchup, as we did see the Darrowing out of Shanghai on game number 1. And as I said a little bit earlier, in case you missed it, this is a best of 7, where each player has brought 7 decks. But once you play a deck, you can't play it again, regardless of whether you win or lose. So that Darrowing is off the table, so Ghost thinks, you know, maybe I might as well throw this out now. Although, if you are going to win the best of 7, you don't actually have to play every deck in your repertoire. If Ghost were to pick up 4 wins in a row, there would be 2 decks that he never actually had to play. So, you know, showing a bit of confidence in a deck like this. And so far, Ghost starting off the finals with 2 very substandard decks. Meanwhile, Shanghai going for the meta that we've seen over the course of the tournament, starting himself off with both of his Noxus decks. And, you know, you can't help but root for Ghost in a scenario like that. Even, you know, regardless of how you feel about both players, everybody loves to see the underdog story, and it looks like Ghost is kind of giving us a bit of a show here between the Poros and the not sea monsters. So I'm curious to see what else he actually has in his lineup. I only got to look at the regional compositions, and as I had mentioned yesterday, there are so many different decks available in each regional combination that it's nearly impossible to tell what players are actually running. So now we're going to see the Hired Gun onto the Ash. Gonna, yeah, just eat out one of those Brittle Steels. There are 3 Brittle Steels in Shanghai's list here. And now he's kind of low on units, but as I mentioned, the Reckoning will come in big a little bit later. Devourer of the Depths currently not lining up well onto anything, as there is an Elixir of Iron on the side of Shanghai. And it looks like the Vile Feast is going to go ahead and come out just in order to sort of get that extra blocker on board. Ash will take out this Jawl Hunters. Ruination number 2 available. And this Sejuani does look enticing for Shanghai. He has some potential to get his board blown wide open here with this Ruination from Ghost. But with 3 copies in the deck, I feel like you have to respect it. The problem for Shanghai is that his attacks are not particularly appealing at the moment. The Sejuani would help that a great deal. So I can definitely understand being inclined to go for it. You know, does my opponent have Ruination? Do I lose the game on the spot if that happens? The answer is no, as you did get a Hearthguard off. You still have this Reckoning in hand. You sort of have your own one-sided Ruination available to you a little bit later on. And this is a game-swinging Ruination, but not a game-ending one. There is potential for Shanghai to come back from this, especially given all the high-health units, or high-attack units, rather, in the deck. And this is going to be the best Ruination that Ghost has gotten all tournament, potentially, in his Runeterra career. Look at what he is giving up and what his opponent is trading away. This goes massively in Ghost's favor, but the card advantage actually still lies with Shanghai, thanks to that Avarosan Sentry. And the Icevale Archer's not going to do a whole lot. Only one Hearthguard has gone off, so the one is just a 4-2. I think the other one might be a 3-1 even. And now Ghost going to throw down the Shipwreck Hoarder. Says, you know what? Now that the board is clear, I want to be a little bit aggressive. I want to throw down the Shipwreck Hoarder. Could go Maokai into Deadbloom Wanderer as well, but is going to be the Shipwreck Hoarder. The big boy coming down, putting some treasures in the deck, and we could see those come up a little bit later. I definitely like getting the Shipwreck Hoarder down before we start tossing things away with Maokai and the Deadbloom Wanderer. So we're going to see Icevale Archer, probably going to see the Culling Strike as well. I think that is sort of the cleanest kill you're going to get onto this 5 health unit, given what you have in your hand here, Shanghai, and he is going to agree. Culling Strike going to come down onto the Shipwreck Hoarder. That's going to be cleared out of the way, and this is a nice open attack set up for Shanghai here. 8 damage coming through at Ghost, but he's got some tools to kind of fight back into this one. Yeti off the top, but Shanghai going to go for the open attack, not wanting to risk another Ruination, even though Ghost doesn't have the mana for it. Just not wanting to develop the Yeti into another big blocker. Devourer of the Depths would be online. You don't really want to use your Elixir of Iron to protect something like the Icevale Archer. Would like to get a higher impact target with that. And it looks like Ghost, considering this Devourer regardless, not waiting to go deep, not waiting for a more value target, is going to play for the short term here. Can he extend this into a long-term advantage? Or is Shanghai going to throw out the Elixir of Iron? As I said, this is not the most ideal target, but for tempo purposes, I think the Elixir of Iron is a very defensible play. Is going to throw it out. There's no response from Ghost to go deep, as we typically don't see Jettison in this deck. And I actually didn't catch how far away he is from deep anyway. I know the Maokai was sitting at 11 out of 25. So he really hasn't tossed too much. And that is one of the things about this deck. It can be difficult for you to go deep if you don't have Maokai out on board already. This second Icevale Archer going to come down onto the Devourer. And now the Reckoning, not actually looking great for Shanghai. It would kill out a large portion of his board, and that's a Keel Breaker off the top for Ghost. I had mentioned that these treasures could come up a little bit later. They're going to come in really big right now. That is deal 5 to the entire board, and there's a Plate Worm Egg. Ghost could have just stolen this game away with the Shipwreck Hoarder, and that is why I love that card so much. The treasures that it makes are so impactful, and Ghost has the mana to play both cards this turn. He's not deep, so it won't be lethal, but it will be 15 damage coming through at Shanghai, unless he wants to commit a Harsh Winds to it, which does not seem like the case. And that Glory Seeker in hand can't even block. Oh, but he's not going to go for the Keel Breaker. Is just going to go for the Plate Worm Egg, it seems. I prefer the Keel Breaker into the egg, given the low amount of cards that Shanghai has available to him. But this actually could be disastrous for Ghost. The Harsh Winds Reckoning is available for Shanghai, so he could throw out this Harsh Winds into this Reckoning, and then we have one Yeti to one Plate Worm. I was gonna. I don't actually know what they're Plate Worm something. Is it Plate Worm Drake? We'll just call them Plate Worms for now. Sorry, I stumbled on the name there. So yeah, we are gonna see the Harsh Winds into the Reckoning. This leaves one Yeti to one Plate Worm, and Ghost actually getting a little bit greedy with the Keel Breaker, not firing that off, and that sort of nullifies the Plate Worm Egg. We are gonna go ahead and snatch back up a Dreg Dredgers, and there is still gonna be damage pushed through onto Shanghai this turn. Ghost does have Maokai as well as the... Never mind, we're not going for the Maokai just yet. We're going for Deadbloom Wanderer. I thought we were going Maokai into the... Is the Maokai now leveled, or was that just going deep? Okay, yeah, the Maokai is leveled. Okay, so Ghost just not wanting to... No, this still would have leveled the Maokai. So he got an extra... So here's how things worked out. One more toss came out of the Deadbloom Wanderer than you would have gotten from the Maokai play, but the Maokai would have leveled anyway when the Dreg Dredgers died. So actually, sort of a missed opportunity from Ghost here. Could have gotten a leveled Maokai on board this turn, as he would have tossed 5 and killed a unit as opposed to tossing 6, and that would mean 1 less turn on the clock for Shanghai. So I am a little bit concerned for that play here. It definitely reads like a misplay to me. I don't think you really needed this lifesteal unit down. You could have played it this turn, and we're just seeing a pass out of Shanghai as you do have this 8/8 Plate Worm now. But Ghost should be able to pull this one out because he has the Keelbreaker and the Ruination. This is not a very large clock for Shanghai, who actually is just going to die right here from the attacks. Game number 3 of a potential 7 underway as we've got the series tied up 1-1 between Ghost and Shanghai. Ghost whipping out his own Darrowing deck, and we do see that one Whirling Death in there that we've seen over the course of the tournament from a couple of players. On the side of Shanghai, we've got Shen Fiora back on the table. Now, we saw this deck a little bit earlier on in the event. Didn't work out particularly well for the pilot in that scenario, but Shanghai going to have a bit of a better chance here against this Darrowing, is teched for it in a meaningful way as well, has a couple of copies of Spirit's Refuge as well as this Radiant Guardian that we do see in the opening hand. So lifesteal on the table for Shanghai, not going to be playing with a stagnant life total that we typically see out of Demacia decks. The Radiant Guardian has really been impacting the format in a big way. We're seeing her in a lot of Demacia decks, even the sort of aggressive ones typically running a couple of copies. Just being able to get this 5/5 tough down that, you know, gets back 25% of your total life total. It's going to be really big here, and Shanghai, kind of a weak opener, going to miss the first couple of turns. Going to sort of just be at the mercy of Ghost here, who does go for an open attack, so at least not getting punished for the weak opening. Ghost not wanting to attack into something like a War Chef. We'll just get the Disciple down after the fact. But this Legion Saboteur, you kind of judge your 1-drops by how much damage they deal for you, and Ghost is guaranteed to get at least 4 damage out of this Saboteur. We don't see any impactful lifesteal out of out of Shanghai rather just yet. Relentless Pursuit off the top, not the best. And for those of you watching this, I believe this is coming out on patch day, so this is still patch 1.5, is played in the wee hours of Tuesday morning, so just a few short hours before the patch actually hits. So that is still a fast Relentless Pursuit. It is not a slow spell just yet. And now Ghost looking at his options. Does he want to throw down this Draven? Maybe the Iron Ballista. Thinking about what he can pair into this Laurent Chevalier, who is almost certainly just going to attack into this Legion Saboteur. Ghost could even offer up a pass, threatening something like a Transfusion. Not going to be the case, though. It's just going to play the Draven. And the Spinning Axe doesn't let the Saboteur trade onto this Chevalier, but we'll have to see how this plays out a little bit later. And we could get a full board clear from Shanghai here if Ghost goes for an open attack. He does have Riposte into single combat mana, so you could Riposte block onto that Crimson Disciple, throw a single combat over at the Draven. But we get the Whirling Death out of Ghost now. Will at least protect the Disciple if that's a play that he's interested in going for. And it looks like it might just be an attack from Draven, actually, or no attacks at all. Could still throw something down pre-combat. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Would likely see Shen as the response from Shanghai, depending on what gets thrown down here, as the Shen does open up another blocker. Not going to be the case, though. Just the open attack out of Ghost. I'm curious to see if we care about developing the Shen more, or if we are going to go for this Riposte single combat, playing very defensively of our life total. Does even play around Transfusion, as you will have that 5 attack breakpoint, still be able to kill either one of these units. And it's an appealing play to be sure, but I'm not sure if it is the best play available, or if further development is the line that you want to be going. This Laurent Protégé kind of past its point of usefulness, since it does only have the 2 attack. As you know, as cool as Shen in a Challenger is, if your Challenger's not actually killing anything, it doesn't feel nearly as good. Shanghai about to rope out here, does have to make a decision. Looks like it will just be a Riposte block onto the Draven. This does open up, or this does rather like save the single combat if Ghost goes for the Whirling Death, and he is going to go for the Whirling Death to get the barrier off, get the quick attack off, kill the unit, but Shanghai has the answer. Ghost pulling this one back. I think this is kind of a no-brainer. You know, I see something trying to kill my Draven. I will try to protect my Draven. Further development doesn't mean as much. I need to get this challenger off the board. And now Shanghai contemplating whether or not he wants to throw out this single combat. I think the single combat also makes a lot of sense. You know, you kill the Draven, you deny the Whirling Death, you still get your dude out. You're only going down to 15. That's not a bad life total to be at going into the Radiant Guardian turn. And you will be surviving, or you will be protecting your challenger, rather. So if you really wanted to, you can just attack this into whatever Ghost plays, regardless of what it is, and then get down your Radiant Guardian. And that's something that's going to be difficult for Ghost to deal with. We don't see a Basilisk Rider out of him. We don't see Shanghai at a low enough life total for the Darius to level up and hit that 6 health as opposed to the 5. Fiora off the top, not bad, but not phenomenal. Ghost, not a super strong turn into this Laurent protege. You don't really want to Demolitionist and then just have your Disciple get picked off by that into a Radiant Guardian. So if anything, we might just see a Disciple. Looks like there was actually just a pass from Ghost saying, look, I know that you're not fine with the board that you have. You want to continue to further develop. I get a little bit more use out of my spell mana than you maybe do. And it looks like Shanghai actually just going to take the attack into the Disciple, going to take that 2 damage in order to turn on the Radiant Guardian. And now Ghost can put Shanghai below that 10 health breakpoint, temporarily at least, long enough to get the Darius down and have it be big enough to survive the Radiant Guardian, but is instead going to go for Iron Ballista. And we're going to see Legion Grenadier. This is still fine for Ghost. You can attack with the Darius all the way to the right, and your opponent can either block the other things, or they can take the Darius hit, even if the Darius doesn't necessarily level up. Just 1 mana shy of the Transfusion, unfortunately. Does have a couple of Spinning Axes, though, so forcing the Darius level up seems like it's something that's going to work out this turn. I don't know if it's necessarily going to kill Shanghai, but it is something that Ghost can force out. And Shanghai's pretty much out of reactive spells at this point, is just going to have a couple of units to throw down. Only going to get 1 down pre-combat, though, so do you go for the Shen to preserve your life total as much as possible, or do you go for this Laurent Chevalier? Or Laurent Protege, sorry. There was a Laurent Chevalier yesterday that popped up, and it looks like it will just be the Shen, getting the highest defense possible out onto the board. And this might deny the Darius level. I think that if you throw this Radiant Guardian in front of the Iron Ballista, you know, that puts you up to, what 18 life? You take 5 from the next 2 attacks. Yeah, you just fall back down to 13. And overall, Ghost not getting a lot accomplished on this turn. If he had the Transfusion mana available to him, then we could see something very close to lethal, but not going to be the case. Actually doesn't even have to throw this Shen under the bus if he doesn't really want to. There are some better blocks available. With Ghost only having 1 mana, yeah, you're not particularly threatened here. The Draven, or the Darius will level up now, but with that Relentless Pursuit, Shanghai has a pretty good chance at stabilizing, since he does have out a Radiant Guardian that is going to survive this combat, unless Ghost wants to throw 2 Spinning Axes onto that Iron Ballista to trade onto it. And it's a scary prospect. There is still single combat mana available for Shanghai. It's a little bit of a risky play. You could just get blown up by a single combat from the Shen. And even if it does work out, you're still discarding 2 real cards out of your hand, as you would need both Spinning Axes to actually get it done, which means that the Spinning Axe cannot discard itself. But we are going to see the Darius level now. Shanghai down to 9. But down to 9 sounds like deny, and there is a deny in Shanghai's hand. So the Harrowing top deck not even necessarily on the table for Ghost. And sometimes all it takes is 1 lifesteal unit swinging the matchup in a big way. Shanghai getting down this Radiant Guardian. Now even has Stand United to continue to protect this Radiant Guardian. And that should be all she wrote. There is a massive Darius on the side of Ghost, though, as well as a full suite of burn in his hand. We have the Demolitionist Disciple combo. We have this second Grenadier, the Transfusion, and the Spinning Axes. So, you know, maybe Ghost can even fight through the extra 10 life that Shanghai's going to be able to get out of this Radiant Guardian because he has the level Darius, because he has so much burn available to him. And actually has the opportunity to not... depending on how things work out, he has the opportunity to not let this Radiant Guardian hit him. If he blocks multiple things, then the Stand United could actually be a blowout just by lining the Radiant Guardian into a different attacker. Or a different blocker. You'll see what I mean in a second here. So what I'm saying is, if you challenge Darius with, say, Fleet Feather Tracker, then you attack with your Radiant Guardian, and Ghost tries to Transfusion the Grenadier that is blocking the Radiant Guardian onto, you know, a different unit, and then you Stand United this Radiant Guardian to actually be in front of the Darius, that's kind of a blowout. Stand United is now off the table, though, but Relentless Pursuit is still alive and well. And with 3 challengers on the side of Shanghai, things are not looking phenomenal for Ghost. The Harrowing top deck off the table, thanks to the deny. This is a bad position for Ghost. You know, he has a bunch of burn in hand, and we were asking ourselves, can he actually fight through the extra 10 lifesteal of the Radiant Guardian? But the more I'm watching this play out, the more I'm inclined to say, no, he cannot. He doesn't have the time available to him. We're going to see too much of his board picked off right here. We could even see Relentless Pursuit if we really wanted to. Shen, pretty likely to get blocked here, actually. Okay, lining up all of these attacks pretty properly, pulling them back. Shanghai almost out of time for the turn, does have to make a decision before this rope actually runs out. Here we're going to see the Radiant Guardian actually give barrier over to this Radiant Guardian, and then line up the attacks in ways that he doesn't take any damage from the Crimson Disciple. And now where does Darius go? Probably in front of the Shen, is what I would be inclined to say, but that does mean that Ghost is guaranteed going to get that damage from the Radiant Guardian through. Going to go back up to 14. Tie this one up almost at 14 to 15. And it looks like Ghost is contemplating whether or not it's worth it to use any of these spinning axes to trade onto either the Fiora or the Laurent Protégé. Just get one more unit off the table, even has the Transfusion available to him. So we could see a full trade of boards from these two players if Ghost wants to commit the Transfusion and the Spinning Axes, but that definitely works out better for Shanghai, who will still have this Shen in hand, who will still have the Deny and the Relentless Pursuit. The Radiant Guardian will survive, doesn't threaten a kill onto Darius just yet, but actually will after it takes the damage from the Shen. So we're going to see the Transfusion actually going to let the Laurent Protégé live, kill the Fiora, push a little bit of damage down onto Shanghai, who's sitting 12 life at the moment, going to take another 4 damage before all is said and done, and this could be Ghost's best chance at winning. We'll even be able to throw down the Demolitionist onto the Disciple after the fact, as it's going to live with just enough HP to get that one done. And I think Shanghai's considering this Relentless Pursuit now. You know, can I... Do I want to trade my Protégé for this buffed up Disciple? Do I want to get in another hit with my Radiant Guardian? And I think this is about as good as the Relentless Pursuit gets, while the Radiant Guardian does still have the barrier on her, as well as you'll be able to, if you want to, take out this Crimson Disciple, maybe push a little bit of damage onto something else. The Protégé attack doesn't line up as cleanly, but I do think you're pretty inclined to go back up to 13 life, or rather 9 life after this Demolitionist comes out. So yeah, we're going to see Shanghai fall down to 4. Relentless Pursuit is fired off. That does mean that the Radiant Guardian's going to hit the face, go back up to 9 going into the defensive turn. And Shen offers up a pretty big butt. That's not a bad Darius blocker. It's just a matter of what do we do with this Protégé. And the answer is nothing. Shanghai rather, just going to actually get off the attack for free. Another Radiant Guardian off the top for Shanghai could be huge. This Iron Ballista is okay, but it's not phenomenal. And now Shanghai does know that Ghost only has 2 spinning axes. Only has 1 additional damage represented. Nothing to deny. Don't have to hold open the mana for that. You are safe to play the Radiant Guardian out this turn. And I'm trying to do math between the lifesteal that the Radiant Guardian presents, the tough, how that interacts with the Overwhelm, and I'm pretty sure as long as Shanghai plays a unit, he survives the turn. It's just a matter of, do I want to throw out the Shen or the Radiant Guardian? Am I going to have a unit alive on the next turn to run out the second Radiant Guardian in an impactful way? Or am I fine with what I have on board and then I can throw down the Radiant Guardian post-combat? I would sit here and math it out for you guys, but with the timer half burned out for Shanghai, I'm pretty sure we're about to see in a couple of seconds here how this actually does play out. Now Ghost contemplating. It's Ghost's turn to contemplate how the attacks actually line up. Looks like Shanghai figured it out, but Ghost, you know, he does have to consider holding back on some of these units, as they could ineffectively trade into the Radiant Guardian. I think you're fine as long as you attack, you know, Darius on the left, Iron Ballista on the left. Just put your 2 attack units on the right side, and I think that's about as good as it gets for you. But he could lose his Darius this turn. He could lose a lot this turn. He could lose the game this turn, potentially, if this other Radiant Guardian does get to come down and start to stabilize for him, especially if the other Radiant Guardian gets to live. And Ghost agonizing over this attack, contemplating holding back the Disciple. I don't think there's a reason to hold back the Disciple. If you put any attacker all the way on the right, then you're pretty much good. I think at this point he's really worried about the potential of Spirit's Refuge, single combat. These are things that Ghost has to worry about, but understands that he really can't play around at this point. You really just need to attack. I think that these are the proper attacks. Your Overwhelms on the left, your other units on the right. I thought the eye got hovered and he was staying at 9 life. I'm like, that doesn't seem right, but now what do we do with this Laurent Protege? It looks like it will block onto the Iron Ballista. This is going to leave Shanghai at 3 when all is said and done. It looks like Ghost was considering using a Spinning Axe just to set his opponent up for a 2 health or a 2 damage lethal, though I can't think of any 2 damage lethal that he could actually top deck. And now we do see the Radiant Guardian number 2 come down. This is not a great spot for Ghost. Could till top deck out of it, but I think anything that he top decks is going to fall to the deny of Shanghai. We really need another Darius here, just so that we have something that can actually run over the Radiant Guardian and survive it. But now with Stand United and Shen out, things are looking pretty bad for Ghost. And this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier on at the start of the matchup. Shanghai has the lifesteal techs available, and the Shens are actually going to get a lot of value here playing Protect the Lifesteal rather than Protect the Challenger. And this one is probably just going to be slipping away from Ghost here, is going to be able to use this Spinning Axe on the Iron Ballista. And, you know, I think that Shanghai is fine with these blocks, and if he really wants to, he could play the Stand United to kind of completely blow out Ghost, you know, kill off both the units, protect the Shen, but it does seem fine to just play the other Shen out. There's no need to get a little bit cheeky here. And he does have mana to replay the Shen and the Deny as well, so not even worried about that last card in Ghost Sand, which is a pretty unimpactful Legion Saboteur. It's not as bad as Precious Pet, given. But yeah, all the top decks are sort of off the table for Ghost at this point. Darius is sort of his one chance, and that's his only chance. Harrowing won't get it done. Decimates will not get it done. Needs another Darius. And, you know, it's only fair. You know, Shanghai saw all 3 Shen and a Fiora. Ghost saw 1 Draven, 1 Darius. This isn't right. Where's Darius number 2? Actually, just going to be a pass out of both players, not even developing the Bright Steel Protector. Oh, and Ghost picks up the Precious Pet that I had mentioned would be worse than the Legion Saboteur. And these are just, you know, sort of unfortunate top decks out of Ghost. Shanghai continues to find what he needs in the second Radiant Guardian, as well as multiple copies of Shen. Ghost doesn't get the same courtesy out of his deck, is going to fall here in game number 3. But this is not a best of 3, it's not even a best of 5, it's a best of 7. So this one's a marathon, and so far Shanghai pulling ahead in the race, but it's not over till it's over. We're even going to see Bright Steel Protector down onto the Green Glade Caretaker, going to buff that one up just a little bit. And I don't think Shanghai has lethal available to him on this turn specifically, but even if he finds a Darius at this point, I think Ghost has lethal on the following turn. He would have really needed like back-to-back Harrowings One to bait out the deny, and then another one to actually pop off, but not going to have the opportunity for that anymore, as he will be dead on the next attack turn. And actually, even just blocking out the barriered up units. What can we find? Basilisk Rider is really nothing at this point, and there's just the surrender out of Ghost, understanding this Radiant Guardian's just too tough to handle. Still no PZ Ionia coming out of either player, but Ghost going to switch over to the Demacia Ionia now. Said, hey, that was really cool what you did with the Radiant Guardian. I would also like to try that as well, and is going to queue up his Karma Lux deck. On the side of Shanghai, we've got Twisted Fate Ezreal. So, Twisted Fate Ezreal is a deck that we've seen quite a bit of. You know, it hasn't been performing as well lately. It's kind of fallen off ever since patch 1.5 when we saw the nerfs onto Pilfered Goods, but actually still running all 3 copies of Pilfered Goods is Shanghai, so we'll see how this one works out for him. Does get the Riptide Rex in the opening hand, and it feels like a lot of these matchups sort of live and die by how good the Riptide Rex is. The Ezreal win condition not going to be super viable for Shanghai in a matchup like this with how much heal is available to Ghost. It looks like these are some stats here. Ghost is 1-1 with his Demacia Ionia decks, it looks like, and I'm not sure. I think they're saying overall Demacia Ionia is 5-5, as that's not Shanghai's name at the top there. So it looks like PZ Ionia has 1 loss, or PZ Demacia rather has 1 loss. Shanghai hasn't actually played it before, it would seem. So it was another player playing the Twisted Fate Ezreal, did not pick up a win with it, and now we see the Zonite Urchin. And this, funny enough, I think this is one of the reasons that Zonite Urchin was changed. It had sort of this unintended interaction with things like Petty Officer and Island Navigator, just letting you draw a card off of it. So a little funny that this works out worse for Ghost because we are just a few hours away from the patch. Thermo Beam now going to finish off this Great Horn. And as I was saying, typically we don't see Twisted Fate Ezreal winning the game with the Ezreal solely. It's sort of a cleanup duty after the Riptide Rex damage comes down, after all this unit damage comes out in the early game. And it's especially not going to work out against a deck like Ghost, who does have the Radiant Guardian, who does have the Health Potion. But because this isn't Karma Ezreal, that Unyielding Spirit is going to stick. I don't even think there's anything that Shanghai can do to respond to a Unyielding Spirit that's going to kill the unit. And if he can get that down onto a Radiant Guardian, you know, or obviously Karma and Lux are phenomenal Unyielding Spirit targets, but if you can even get it down onto a Radiant Guardian in a matchup like this, you're going to feel great. As long as you can get it down onto something, it's going to completely invalidate that Riptide Rex unless it just never fires on it. But, you know, without Riptide actually killing the unit, no damage is going to go through to the face. So Ghost could be inclined to just bank up some spell mana and get down a tough lifestealed Radiant Guardian and then just kind of ride that one home with the Undying down onto it. Won't have the Unyielding Spirit available for the following turn if he does play the Radiant Guardian out here. Looks like Shanghai's contemplating, do I go for the open attack? Is it better to play something first? We'll actually play the Dreadweight deckhand. And if we see the Shadow Assassin out of Ghost, then all of a sudden this Static Shock gets more value than it ever has any business sort of getting. Wouldn't even be the most surprised person in the world to see a single combat come down onto a barrel at that point, just to prevent the death of the 2 Shadow Assassins, but Ghost, I don't think he's going to be particularly upset about potentially just blocking here and throwing down the Radiant Guardian. Does still have the health potion to keep him a little bit healthy in the meantime. I definitely think you want to save that single combat for the Radiant Guardian, especially if you can get the Unyielding Spirit down onto it first. We are just going to see a kill onto the Jagged Butcher, not wanting to give Shanghai that draw from the Zonite Urchin just yet. Going to swap it over to the deckhand. Don't think it makes too much of a difference. There's no bounce coming out of either. Well, actually, no, Ghost does have Will of Ionia in the deck, so there's a little bit of bounce coming out. So just deciding that he would rather see this Jagged Butcher put back over the Dreadweight deckhand. If it does come down to that, though, it is pretty unlikely to come down to that. So, Radiant Guardian developed, Ghost going to have 7 mana available to him on the following turn, and really just needs to get this Spirit down before the Rex, but as I had mentioned, while it's no longer a burst spell, there's nothing Shanghai can do to actually contest it. You know, Ghost can proactively play that and feel really good about it, especially onto something like a Radiant Guardian. There are no Get Exciteds or Gotchas out of Shanghai's deck, so it would have to be like 6 Mystic shots, 5 Mystic shots to kill it, and that doesn't sound like something that's going to be happening, especially now that the barrel is off the table. Could just see the Thermo Beam onto it on the following turn for 8 mana. There's Thermo Beam number 2. Shadow Assassin going to start off the turn. Does mean that Karma can't come down if Thermo Beam was the sort of answer we were looking for here. And Ghost is going to be in trouble if he doesn't actually get down the Unyielding Spirit before the Riptide Rex potentially comes out. Here we're going to see Yordle Grifter pick up a Blinding Assault. And that's actually a little bit scary for Ghost. With his life total this low, even if he gets the Unyielding Spirit down onto the Radiant Guardian, Blinding Assault can just pull it all the way to the wrong side of combat, and you can present lethal before the lifesteal actually triggers. Though he is going to go back up to 13 here with this Radiant Guardian, so that's probably not a realistic opportunity for the following turn. And, ooh, this is big. So this is why I like the Health Potion a lot in decks like this. We see it a lot in the Karma Ezreal decks that are running Vi as well. We've seen it in a couple more Vi Heimers. It's now very enticing for Shanghai to go for this Radiant Guardian Thermo Beam. And the Health Potion can just save the Radiant Guardian, putting it back up to 5 HP. And then we will have that Unyielding Spirit mana available for it on the following turn. And I think Ghost just kind of takes over the game from there. And that's one of the things that I really like about the Karma Lux is Unyielding Spirit presents you with this alternate win condition onto Radiant Guardian. You don't even need to play for your champions necessarily anymore. And I think that you're going to consistently stay at this 20 life total and never really have to worry about the Ezreal killing you or the Riptide Rex killing you. Health Potion negating Thermogenic Beam just feels so good for Ghost here. Please don't play that Shadow Assassin. Okay, Ghost going to hold back, bank up that spell mana, and this should be the turning point of the game. It is 1 turn early on the Riptide Rex, so we're not even going to see that come out as an option. And Shanghai does not have the capabilities to kill this Radiant Guardian in response. Would have needed 2 Mystic Shots, only has 1 available to him. Here we're going to see the Blinding Assault. No draw available, and maybe Ghost doesn't go for it because there is the possibility of the double Mystic Shot. Maybe decides that, you know, I can get this down onto Karma a little bit later. It's not as risky. Just going to see a pass here out of Ghost. Because he can throw down this Unyielding Spirit in response to the Riptide Rex, and that's a much bigger mana commitment on the side of Shanghai. So you don't have to worry about that as much. So we're going to see the Shadow Assassin to pass priority over to Shanghai, who is almost certainly going to go Warning Shot into Riptide Rex. It's about as juicy as a Riptide gets. You get to clear out your opponent's board. They don't have the mana to set up a Karma or Lux. You get to attack for lethal on the open. But Ghost gonna have the answer. And with this Judgment in hand, I think this is definitely all but over here. There's the Warning Shot. There's the Riptide. Where do the cards land? And that is a lot of shots onto the Radiant Guardian. Gonna feel good about that as all of those are gonna get negated. Is still gonna eat 1 damage for his trouble because of the Shadow Assassin taking 2 shots, but this should be game now for Ghost, especially triple single combat, Judgment. This is everything you could possibly want on a protected Radiant Guardian. Ghost effectively playing with 40 life here and hasn't gone to combat yet, so will actually be able to attack. Is going to go up to 17 life. The Blinding Assault not going to be enough to pull everything to the side and kill him. Does have the single combat to prevent something like that anyway. And we're probably just even going to see Judgment out of Ghost on the following turn, followed by a concession out of Shanghai. Though he does have a leveled Ezreal. Though with single combats lining up how they are, I don't think that the leveled Ezreal is going to make too much of a difference. This is a deck that Shanghai's deck rather, is a deck that likes, actually both of these decks like to hang back their champions, let them sit on the bench, and have those act as the win conditions. And Ghost has every answer you could possibly want for something like that in the double Blinding Assault and the single combat. So not sure I'm calling this one early if I say that Ghost is going to be tying this one up 4-4. And going into Game 5 is not actually as impactful as it sounds, as this is a best of 7, so 3 wins is not enough. You actually need to pick up a 4th win in order to close out the series. Here we see Pilfered Goods, and that actually could be the difference maker. If Ghost can pull a Will of Ionia out of Ghost And he has the opportunity to do it in combat here thanks to the warning shot. This could prove to be disastrous. At least, you know, goes for the single combat rather than the judgment, so we'll have a little bit of wiggle room if we do see the Will of Ionia picked up. It does still have mana for additional single combats available to him, but it looks like we get Remembrance and Mage Seeker Conservator. Is Conservator the 1-drop? Investigator's the 3-drop. Mage Seeker Beatdown Boy. Neither of these cards are named Will of Ionia, and it does mean that Shanghai is on the back foot in a major way here. But, you know, there are more pilfered goods in the deck. There are more black market merchants. The Zonite Urchin does still represent a draw, so Shanghai has some options to get back into this one. We don't see the Lux out of Ghost just yet, so still a little bit ways off of winning the game, though he's not really in danger of losing anytime soon. And yeah, just going to see a pass. No mana to protect the Karma. You can just get that down next turn and at least fire off the Insight of Ages. Here we're going to see Remembrance, and what do we get? It's a Radiant Guardian. Tough and lifesteal. Not quite as pretty and interactive as Ghosts, you know. But it'll get the job done for the time being, and this could just draw out the game for quite some time. I don't think that Ghost can lose outside of getting a Will of Ionia stolen, as he's not playing the Mage Seeker that creates Detain, which Shanghai would be able to actually turn on if he throws out a 6-mana Thermogenic Beam. But Ghost not running that card. These Karma Lux decks are actually extremely light on units. It is just Mage Seeker, Shadow Assassin, and the Radiant Guardian. And as we see out of Shanghai there, it is not the Detain Mage Seeker, it is the Beatdown Mage Seeker. And here we're going to see Make It Rain, actually going to low roll quite a bit, not able to take out both of the Valors. Just going to kill one of those, going to push a little bit of useless face damage. And now Ghost, going to get down to leveled Karma, and this should be all she wrote. Even gets a Deep Meditation alongside it. Oh, going for the Scout attack and not the actual attack does mean that Twisted Fate could stun out this Radiant Guardian here, though I think it's a little bit more likely that we see a blue card to kind of dig a little bit deeper, understanding that there is a win condition buried in my deck. It's called Steal a Will of Ionia from my opponent, and I just need to do everything that I can to get towards that. It doesn't really matter what my opponent's life total is up until then. If I can just get this Radiant Guardian off the board, I can win. And it's a race to Ghost's Will of Ionia versus Ghost getting Karma Lux online. There's the pilfered goods. That is sort of step one of this plan. Zonite Urchin going to be the block, going to pick up another card. Yordle Grifter, yeah, even more yoink coming out of Shanghai. So many opportunities to find the Will of Ionia. Ghost hasn't seen a copy of his own just yet. There's the Yordle Grifter, finds a Deny. Here we're going to see Karma into a doubled up Deep Meditation. Though, if Shanghai wants to, he can fire off the pilfered goods right now with the warning shot before Ghost can rip the 4 spells out of his own deck. And I don't think leveled Twisted Fate necessarily even represents a win condition here if Ghost, for some reason, just used all of his single combats before the TF was even dead, as I don't think Shanghai's going to have enough gas in the tank to consistently gold card this Radiant Guardian. And if Shanghai does pass priority here, I think Ghost is going to just go for the Deep Meditation. And it seems unlikely that Shanghai wants to fire off his warning shot here. You know, maybe he thinks I need to fire off this pilfered goods before my opponent can find things like the Deep Meditation and start to pull cards out of his deck. But it's not mana efficient. He does have the opportunity to just turn things on with combat damage on the following turn. We're actually going to see Thermo Beam onto the Karma. That's going to at least get the Deep Meditation out of Ghost. How many Will of Ionias can we find? That's not one. That's not one. That's not Will of Ionia. Okay, we've got one Will of Ionia. And like I had said, Ghost can still win the game if he can get Karma Lux online before the Will of Ionia comes out of Shanghai. But with only one Will of Ionia found, it is getting a little bit scary. You know, we are digging a little bit closer to the bottom of Ghost's deck. Less and less Wills available. Actually going to see the Deny onto the Thermo Beam. Makes a fair bit of sense. You don't really want to recommit 6 mana to this Karma. There's not a whole lot to actually deny in your opponent's deck in an impactful way. Maybe we should have held that on for the Will of Ionia, but we do see a Deny out of Shanghai anyway, who even picks up the Black Market Merchant. More and more pilfer coming out of Shanghai. Can he find the Will? If you guys have been waiting for me to make a pun about there being a will and a way, it's not happening. I've acknowledged that it's not happening. 14 cards in deck, 2 of them are named Will of Ionia. This is scary for Ghost. Here we're going to see the Mage Seeker Beatdown Boy. Looks like he's freeing up hand space for the Karma's Inside of Ages. And at this point, I'm not sure if Will of Ionia would be too little too late. You know, Ghost does still have the opportunity to clear your entire board with the Judgment. He can single combat things to kill them in response. It's possible that the Will just isn't even enough at this point. Here we see Remembrance picked up. Do still have this pilfered goods available. What can it find us? What treasures are at the bottom of your deck, Ghost? Twisted Fate. I didn't actually see what that was at. I'm pretty sure it's a lot. That thing has been on board for a while. There have been a couple of draw spells thrown out. I didn't, once again, too fast to actually see it. So we're going to see the single combat fired off to just get that off board. Shanghai still has 2 draws available for him. So for Ghost's sake, I hope that TWF set 5 out of 8. And it looks like that was 5 out of 8. And we get Will of Ionia and Concussive Palm. Do you fire off the Will of Ionia now? You know there are only 2 deny in your opponent's deck. You have one of them in your hand. One was fired off the turn before. So you know that you're safe to go for this Will. And it will importantly deny the single combat, or at least get more copies out of your opponent. Here we see the Will of Ionia stolen away and played. And suddenly this is a scary position for Ghost. He doesn't have Judgment mana anymore. He does still have to deal with this Twisted Fate. But this is his last single combat as well, and he doesn't have phenomenal blocks on the turn. Can just Will of Ionia the opposing Radiant Guardian as well if he really wants to. But unless Ghost finds a Lux in the next turn or two, he's in a terrifying position, actually. Karma's not enough to win the game in a deck like this. It's not like Karma Ezreal, where you can throw all of your excess burn spells at your opponent and just kill them. You do need that secondary win condition. You could find things like Remembrance, even Concussive Palm, not going to be too bad, as it is going to create multiple 3/2s, and I actually think I would have not minded seeing the Concussive Palm come down pre-combat, like in response to this single combat. Looks like Ghost was kind of holding back his mana in case another answer came out. He had Will of Ionia still available onto the TF. But there's nothing that Shanghai could do for 2 or even 3 mana, since there are discounted cards from the Black Market Merchant, to actually get that one done. But we will see a doubled up Concussive Palm getting 2 Tails of the Dragon, which could be impactful. Actually, yeah, gonna throw out a block as well onto this Yordle Grifter. And Ghost still feels like he's in control of the game. You know, does lose his Unyielding Spirited unit. But it's really not the end of the world since the Karma has survived this long. Does still have that second Karma. We see no way to kill it on the side of Shanghai. Riptide Rex could be a difference maker at this point, though, and picks up Make It Rain instead. That is very much not Riptide Rex. That's like the opposite of Riptide Rex. Or at least the weakest available version of him. So now we're going to see a couple of attacks out of Ghost. Is he going for a Judgment play? Actually, just no blocks out of Shanghai, not even wanting to throw out the Radiant Guardian. Going to see 5 mana Remembrance, as it was stolen by a Black Market Merchant. It's not like something died this turn. That's why we don't see the lifesteal tough down onto that Radiant Guardian. It wasn't a 5 cost reduction from a unit dying. It was the Merchant. So now we're actually going to see a Radiant Guardian from Ghost. And that's why Shanghai didn't block, right? So to prevent the lifesteal tough Radiant Guardian out of Ghost. Mage Seeker Beatdown coming down, but none of the Thermogenic Beams played were 6 mana. And even the Remembrance that was just stolen was only 5, so the Mage Seeker not actually going to get his Challenger off. And Ghost down to about 10 cards in deck, maybe less, and just still not finding the Lux. Actually, I think he's hesitant to fire off the Karma's Inside of Ages because it will shuffle 2 Karmas into the deck and sort of dilute his chances of drawing the Lux. Shanghai's found his window back into the game, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to close it out. 9 cards in deck, so A third of Ghost's deck currently is Lux, and that's, you know, Shanghai kind of helping him out a little bit on that one, and not getting punished for it. You know, I'm constantly stealing cards off the bottom, and that's one of the changes that they did make to Nab, and one of the reasons it steals off bottom now, was because there was this unintended punish that your opponent was getting closer and closer to their champions. So now stealing off the bottom doesn't actually mean as much in terms of getting you closer to your cards. It just lets you brag about, oh, you know, I lost because there were only 9 cards in my deck, and I didn't see my other champion in my champion-based deck. This is probably where we see... Actually, no, the deny is all but useless, actually, for Shanghai, as Judgment would be doubled up. And I'm a little surprised we don't see the Judgment, actually. He does have the answer for the Judgment in the Concussive Palm, though, would take the unit out of combat. So maybe that's why we're seeing that one held back by both players. And Ghost, you know, fine to just clear out the board here, is going to get his Radiant Guardians online now, which is, I think, sort of what he was a little bit more worried about, was getting those online. So this makes sense, you know, holding back the Judgment in order to get all that out. Now it just needs to find this Lux, and maybe the Judgment is supposed to be my 1-card, 2 Final Spark sort of activator for that champion when I do find her. Static Shock hovered, but not committed. Shanghai definitely doesn't want to just pass the turn. He definitely got sort of the worst end of this one. Ghost gets to develop the Radiant Guardian. He gets to clear out most of Shanghai's board, gets another couple of Tails of the Dragon. So Shanghai definitely doesn't want to do nothing. The Static Shock doesn't look super impactful, but with the Radiant Guardian Mortal, it is a little bit more possible to get the Ezreal win condition online. That Ezreal is leveled up and has been leveled up for quite some time. And we're going to get Dreadway Deckhand instead. That is decidedly not Ezreal. Does open up the potential for a Make It Rain to actually kill a couple of units, and maybe now we can actually see the Karma killed by this Mystic Shot as well. Gonna get Make It Rain first. Pretty low impact hits here, though. Gonna kill one of the Tails, push a little bit of damage onto this Radiant Guardian, a little bit of damage onto Ghost's face. Oh, Deep Meditation picked up, and there's probably not even 4 spells left in Ghost's deck. I think there's still 1 Shadow Assassin, 1 Mage Seeker Beatdown Boy, and 3 Lux. So I think there's 2 spells in his deck at most. If I've tracked this sort of correctly. Maybe 3 spells. Yeah, it looks like 3 spells. No, because there's another Karma in there too. So yeah, should only be 2 spells left in Ghost deck, so the double up on this actually doesn't matter. Looks like it was Deny and Will of Ionia as the last 2. Oh, so there actually were 3 Deny in Ghost deck, so that explains a little bit more Shanghai not using this Deny as aggressively. Understanding that there was still 1 Deny in Ghost deck, who now really has no choice but to draw a Lux relatively soon. Half the deck is now down to Lux. One of them is a Shadow Assassin as well, so that'll help him get a little bit closer. And of course, he's not worried about decking out, as he does have, you know, Karma on board. The champion mechanic in Runeterra, making it pretty hard to lose by deck out unless a Maokai comes down. See the Radiant Guardian block as well as the Concussive Palm. I don't think Ghost is going to really care about this one too much. Maybe you throw out the Deny just because there's not a lot to deny in your opponent's deck, but, you know, just not getting that lifesteal off, not going to worry him too much, as he does have that health potion still available to him. Gonna see Radiant Guardian number 3 come down. This one not gonna be tough, not gonna have lifesteal, but gonna be a 5/5 nonetheless. Can we find Lux off the top for Ghost? Jesus Christ. This man has 5 cards in deck, 3 of them are named Lux, and that's all he needs to win. Twisted Fate off the top for Shanghai, who can still turn the tides of the game with a Riptide Rex, and that's part of the reason we see the blue card come out here. Won't be able to Rex this turn, but there's Ezreal. And as we had mentioned, all the single combats are gone for Ghost. It's really just Judgment on the table, but he still needs an elusive unit to get that one done. Just going to see a pass out of both players. Karma. This means, if I am... No, there's a Shadow Assassin, so Ghost is at least guaranteed to draw a Karma next turn, thanks to the Shadow Assassin that could be left in there. We could even see... I think there's a really good chance that we see the unplundered, pilfered goods out of Shanghai this turn, understanding that there is only one card in my opponent's deck that I can actually steal left. And this is so rough for Ghost. This is terrifying. Like, imagine losing this game because the bottom 3 cards of your deck were your Luxes. That would be... The chances of that happening are astronomical, but this is a trading card game. We could see it happen. We could see Ghost actually go down 3-1 because of such small chances that the Karma never came out. But I think he's going to be okay. I don't think that this Ezreal represents lethal, especially through the lifesteal of the Radiant card. Oh, actually just going to trade the life away. Says, I don't want you to gain life. I don't want me to gain life. I don't really care. I still have this health potion available. It's not really a concern of mine. Because Ghost is basically sitting at 18, I don't think he's particularly worried about something like an Ezreal win condition. And it looks like Shanghai is going to throw that one down here. Definitely doesn't have 6 burst spells available to kill Ghost. And we're actually just going to see the health potion fired off on the face to play mana efficiently and kind of let Shanghai know what's going on here. You know, who's the boss? It's me. I've got 18 HP. And Ghost's going to pass over, not firing off the Karma's Inside of Ages, not wanting to dilute his deck, needs to draw that Lux next turn. And Ghost, at this point, will steal the Shadow Assassin no matter where it is in the deck. Going to see Mystic Shot number 1 fired off. Down to 14 past the turn. Pilfered Goods going to put you back down to 12. Oh, it looks like they're Deep Meditation? That doesn't... Ghost played a Deep Meditation earlier in the game, and it only drew the Will of Ionia and the Deny. Why didn't it pick up this Deep Meditation out of his deck? Huh. Because there's no way the Deep Meditation got shuffled back in later. But this Deep Meditation might actually present lethal for Shanghai, since he has the Ezreal on board. Now we see the Lux come out. But with Deep Med the steal, this could be too little too late. We're going to have to see Will of Ionia out of Ghost here. Otherwise, this Ezreal just represents too much damage. I'm really lost on why this Deep Meditation wasn't pulled by the Deep Meditation earlier on. I thought I had mathed it out and we were down to 2 spells, and that seemed to be correct. But I guess not, yeah. Something got missed by me along the way. I apologize for misleading all of you. But if this Ezreal hits when they're leveled represent about 6 damage between the attack, the Mystic Shot, and the actual damage that the Mystic Shot is going to deal to you. But yeah, Ghost might be dead now with the 2 Mystic Shots picked up in the Deep Med for Shanghai. The denial of the lifesteal on the previous turn could play against him in a major way. Oh, and we see Warning Shot and Make It Rain picked up even. And I know that Deep Med only plays, like, steals 2 spells, and that's why we saw Deny and Will picked up, but he had a Karma on field. He played 2 Deep Meds. That's where I'm lost. So before you go into the comment section, like, Deep Med only takes 2 spells, there was a Karma on field, and the second one got nothing. Can it only get 2? If you only have 1 spell in deck, does Deep Med just not pull anything? Is that what I'm missing? You only had 1 left, so the second Deep Med can't pull anything? That sounds weird. And Ghost really has to find a health pot off of one of these Karma's Inside of Ages. I think that the Deny War doesn't actually work out for him. We're going to see Make It Rain with the Ezreal still on field. And this actually gets scary for Ghost, because if he does play the Lux, he's really just at the mercy of this Ezreal, and actually will die this turn if that's the case. I think he has to fire off one of these Inside of Ages and just get the Karma down on the following turn. Oh, but he's been waiting for this Lux so long, he just throws it down. And this should actually just be lethal for Shanghai now, I believe. with the 2 Mystic shots and the Warning Shot, I don't even think Health Potion's necessarily enough at this point. Doesn't pick it up anyway. And yeah, that does mean that Shanghai's actually going to pick up this win. Ghost finding the Lux just way too late. Shanghai getting a very timely Ezreal. Finding the Deep Meditation to actually be able to pick up the win. And Ghost is going for lethal, but Shanghai has the answer with the 2 Mystic shots. This game has dragged on for so long. Shanghai stayed in it and is going to pick up the win with this leveled Ezreal. Ghost, this is heartbreaking for him. Gonna fall down in the series 3-1, but as mentioned, he's still got another game to try and pick this one back up. And you can see the disappointment in Ghost's face. That was a long one and a tough loss to take, but Ghost takes it in strides. Actually seems pretty okay with it. After a long, grueling 30-minute game of Karma Lux versus Twisted Fate Ezreal, I hope you guys are excited for more Ezreal action. As for game number 5, both players have whipped out the Karma Ezreal. So, as I mentioned, this is a best of 7, so even though Shanghai has 3 wins, is going to need to pick up 1 more to actually close out the series. And Ghost going to have to pick up 3 wins in a row in order to close this one out, take it to a game 7 in order to find himself the victor of this Dex Masters of Runeterra tournament. Both players going for the 1 of Vi over the 3 Karma, which is an adaptation that I like a lot. Both players going for the 3 damage spells in Gotcha and Get Excited. Looks like we have some stats down there at the bottom. It looks like Karma Ezreal, or maybe it's just PZ Ionia, has a 12-9 record overall, Ghost being 1-0 with that regional combination. I'm curious. I'm holding off on the commentary to see if it does swap over to show us Shanghai's stats with the deck as well. In the meantime, Eye of the Dragon coming down for Shanghai. Not a super impactful card in this matchup. Looks like Shanghai is 2-0 with PZ Ionia, so neither player really whipping it out too often. These players have played from top 16 to top 8 to top 4, so a total opportunity to play the deck 3 times. Ghost actually getting here, only playing it 1 time. So not a lot of game 5s on his side, it would seem. And always saving this deck for the end, as he has done here. Sort of putting his tournament life on the hands of this Karma Ezreal. And maybe Shanghai knew that. Maybe he said, I'm fine with a mirror match, actually. I think that I can outplay you in something like this. Maybe I think my deck is a little bit better teched for this matchup. And so far, this Eye of the Dragon, not getting a lot done, but, you know, not getting nothing done, I guess is the best way to put it. Down to 18, that is just 1 less sort of hit that you have to have with an Ezreal. But we do see Health Potion in Ghost Hand. We're seeing Health Potions out of both players, as that is the adaptation that the Vi variant has kind of come out with. It's a little bit more anti-aggro, both in the Health Potion and the Vi. But being able to heal up the Vi as opposed to your face, as we saw last game, especially with that Health Potion, healing up the Radiant Guardian in an impactful way. Now Ghost finally deciding, I have to play a card. I have 10 cards in hand. Something's got to go. It's going to be this Mystic Shot. And Shanghai doesn't have anything phenomenal on the side. You really don't want to play a Will. While Will of Ionia is not the best card in this matchup, you don't really want to play it onto your Eye of the Dragon to protect it. And it's just going to be a pass from both players, sitting at 9 cards in hand. Going to go up to 10. And still no Dragonling coming out of Shanghai, who's likely to just go for an open attack again here. Ghost going to Static Shock that and the face. This does still leave Will of Ionia, Thermogenic Beam, and Get Excited. A lot of answers, actually, for Ghost in order to take out a Karma if Shanghai wants to get a little bit greedy here. I think it's a little more likely we just see Eye of the Dragon number 2 come down. Unless he, too, is trying to save that for when his opponent has dealt a little bit more damage to him. You know, you kind of draw that first one and you're like, I might as well develop the board. Let's see what I can get done with this. The second one, you're like, okay, I don't want to just throw this away. This I would rather save to actually get some lifesteal usage out of. And so far, Shanghai just not having the best hand. As I had mentioned, these Will of Ionia is not phenomenal. Actually going to fire off the Gotcha in order to prevent the target for the Ezreal. Not sure how I feel about this one. Gotcha, a pretty impactful spell, as there are a lot of units with a 3 health breakpoint in this matchup. You know, Karma, Ezreal, Chump Wump, Eye of the Dragon. There's just a couple. I'm a little surprised to see Will of Ionia not be the answer there in that case. I don't think this is something that gets a lot of value in this matchup. Maybe just wanting to save it for those tempo plays on the Karma, understanding that one of Vi is a little bit difficult to deal with. Maybe I just want to keep bouncing that over and over again, sort of get the mana leg up on my opponent. It looks like Ghost, considering discarding Deny and either Will of Ionia or the other Deny with this Rummage, will be Will and Deny. And then, you never like to play Rummage and then find out Chump Wump was the top card of your deck. But the Mushroom plan could be Ghost's backup plan here. We've seen Ezreal players do this in the past where, you know, it's very difficult to actually develop boards into this matchup. You'd rather keep your opponent's Ezreal on as few targets as possible. This is a matchup that really comes down to the Karma value. How much can I get done with my Karma the turn that I play it? And shuffling 20 Mushrooms into your opponent's deck for 2 mana, not a bad amount of value to get out of the Karma. Something that is worth noting, and I've talked about this a lot, I'm sure you guys know this at this point, but 2 Get Excited and 2 Mystic Shot with a leveled Karma on field does represent 20 damage, so Health Potion wouldn't be able to save you in that instance, as well as it takes up 8 of the 9 stack slots, so you are very limited in the amount of ways that you can actually respond to it. And now Ghost is actually in danger of overdrawing, will probably fire off one of these Mushrooms. And Shanghai gonna milk this Chump Wump for as many targets as he can. Probably gonna fire off the Static Shock as well. And overall, Shanghai just not having phenomenal cards for the matchup. Will of Ionia and Thermogenic Beam are some of the worst cards that you could find. Thermo Beam is just too big of a mana commitment to find use out of outside of very narrow ranges. And those ranges can be very scary to play in. They can not come up often. Is going to be able to find one of them here where he can actually Thermo Beam onto this Chump Wump, but does take the 4 damage for his trouble, as well as get the draw denied from his Static Shock thanks to, well, the Deny out of Ghost. What a concept. Deny denies things from people like draws, but now we see Shadow Assassin and a discounted Deep Meditation, a pretty juicy looking turn for Shanghai, who actually does just pass it right back over to Ghost. Both players sort of enticed to go back up to this 3 spell mana, but you know, Shanghai knows that Ghost has to play something or he will overdraw. So we are going to see Mushroom number 1 fired off. And now Shanghai can throw out his Deep Med, maybe throw out his Shadow Assassin. Got a couple of options available to him. Just needs to make sure that he's got enough mana to kill the Karma on the side of Ghost if it does come down to that. That's more of a consideration on turn 9 than turn 8, as, you know, if you tap out on turn 9 and your opponent gets down the Karma, gets the free spell off, and then still gets to go for the level up, get all that, you know, spell mana available to him, get those spells doubled up coming out. We're going to see Gotcha off the top. If Shadow Assassin is the play from Shanghai, I think it's pretty likely that we just see a Gotcha straight fired off onto it. Going to even fire off the second Shroom. Just wanting to play mana efficiently, put himself back at 9 cards, as the Deep Med did put him back up to 10, and that's just going to be a pass out of both players. Eye of the Dragon now picked up. Ezreal number 2 on the side of Shanghai. So both players have 1 Karma and 2 Ezreals available to him. Ghost has a little bit of a stronger hand to sort of back that one up. Static Shock is one of the better spells to sort of double up with the Karma. If you're not going for a lethal where you're just jamming down a naked Karma, you know, being able to draw 2 is pretty good. And Shanghai, I mean, Shadow Assassin seems like the most likely play. It's either that or a pass. I don't think there's a whole lot else you'd want to do. Is going to take 2 damage for his trouble with the Mushrooms. Picks up a Chump Wump of his own. Here we're going to see the attack from the Eye of the Dragon, actually. He says, I would love to sort of juice up your Shadow Assassin for a Static Shock to come out a little bit later on, possibly even this turn. And actually, Shanghai just going to offer up the pass. Both players currently sitting at 9 cards in hand. And now we're going to see, ooh, Mystic Shot doesn't feel great. You know, you already sort of pushed damage onto your Eye of the Dragon, and while that does sort of stop your opponent from milking it for targets, definitely feels a little weird to fire off anything here before the Karma comes down. Gotcha almost feels like the best removal option for the Shadow Assassin if you're just looking strictly to not get doubled up spell value. Karma number 2, the pickup from Ghost. And he's got the life advantage, and he's got a fair amount of burn available to him. If he really wants to, and wants to play a little bit risky, you know, he can throw down the Karma fire off a bit of burn this turn, then throw down another karma on the following turn, throw a little bit more burn at his opponent. He does have 12 damage available over the course of the 2 turns between the Static Shock, Get Excited, Mystic Shot, and I think that's what Ghost is going to go for. Shadow Assassin attack out of Shanghai. No reason not to, and it looks like Ghost is going to get down that karma. Now it's just a matter of, do we play the Mystic Shot or the Get Excited? Like, which are we playing first? And I think Static Shock Mystic Shot is a little bit more likely to come out this turn, just so that you get those additional draws going into the next one. And this really only works because he has the 2 karmas, or maybe he wants to play mana efficiently, still bank that 3 spell mana going into the following turn, which means we could see the Static Shock. We are going to see Will of Ionia even onto the karma. And this is a little bit scary for Ghost, as it does allow Shanghai to develop his own karma, so we might just see the Mystic Shot in order to preserve his card total to actually be able to kill Shanghai's karma. Or not. We're just going to see the Get Excited fired off as well. Discarding the Concussive Palm. I think Static Shock and Mystic Shot was like, or Static Shock and Get Excited, sorry, God. Mystic Shot and Get Excited was like the one combination I'm not in love with. I don't think it's necessarily going to punish him in a big way. We are going to get to see Shanghai develop his own karma, but, you know, we just know that from Shanghai's hand, there's actually not a lot of value to be gained out of this karma. It's just, I can get off 2 Jury Rigs, I can get off 2 Tails of the Dragon. Really no immediate value, no deep meditations, no burn available to him. Ghost at a high enough life total to survive most burn that would be coming out anyway. But Ghost actually could have killed himself here. If Shanghai had double Mystic Shot, double Get Excited, he would be able to get down the karma, bank the 3 spell mana, and just, you know, kill Ghost on the following turn with that first instance of priority. Or that second instance, rather. Ghost would have to... Oh, no, maybe Ghost would just have lethal, as he would be able to play the karma at start of turn, and then... No, actually wouldn't be able to win the game, because Shanghai would fill up the stack. 1 Static Shock is all that would be able to go on the stack from Ghost, and he wouldn't be able to pick up the game, as he would only deal 1 damage. So the stack limit would actually come up there, and I don't think I've seen that happen in tournament before. So that would be interesting, but not what we're going to see, as Shanghai has no burn available to him whatsoever. We actually see the Shadow Assassin over the spell mana too, in order to try and find something a little more impactful for the karma, but doesn't actually happen. Vi is going to be drawn instead. And given the current board state, Ghost should just be the winner here. It would need a health potion or deny off the top from Shanghai. Can he get it done? It's a Static Shock. That's not enough. Oh, it will be if Ghost goes for the attack instead of just outright playing this. Ooh, this is a scary scenario. Ghost going for the attack, and this opens up the Static Shock draws from Shanghai. It's Ezreal number 3. And Rummage, that's terrifying for Ghost. That's 4 more draws that Shanghai is going to have to find something like a health potion. Or a deny. Ghost could go for... I mean, so you don't have to go for Karma's Static Shock. You could just play Ezreal into Ezreal's Mystic Shot. But it looks like he wants to open himself up to the possibility of the Karma's Insight of Ages as well, to try and find something. And I think... I mean, I think I was overestimating the value of the Rummage, because Shanghai does actually have to throw out the Will of Ionia here. And this does mean that Health Potion is sort of the only thing that could possibly come out. So we need this health potion. We need this Rummage to find a health potion if Shanghai's going to live, and I'm not feeling great about his chances. He's gotten pretty lucky in some of the other games, though. We'll have to see. You know, you just snap fire off this Rummage, or maybe Shanghai's not even playing it. I'd be a little surprised by that. You know, we do see that typically in the Vi builds. and it would actually put him up to 10 life and get him out of the range of really anything that Ghost could top deck beyond this point. I think this would be sort of the game, set, match, and tournament for Shanghai if Health Potion comes off the top here. The tension is rising as Shanghai selects his discard targets. What are we getting rid of? What are we going to find? Do we have the hand space to find it? If he overdraws the Health Potion as the 4 cards, I am going to scream like a little girl. Oh, but he does have the hand space, so he will draw all 4 cards. What do we have? Health Potion as the first pickup. Oh, but he draws too many mushrooms and dies. Oh my... What an ending to that game! I still cannot get over the fact that Shanghai drew the Health Potion. The Ghost gave him the opportunity to draw the Health Potion. Shanghai drew it, and it didn't matter because of the mushrooms that we had seen earlier on. And now we are in Game 6 here of the Grand Finals, Ghost versus Shanghai. Ghost has to pick up the next 2 wins. Shanghai only has to find 1. We've got Bald Eagle versus the Trifarian deck, and it looks like this Trifarian deck has been 7-5 over the course of the tournament, Ghost being 3-0 on it. So if he can bump himself up to 4-0, can force out the Game 7. And these players will be sort of stuck with the decks that they didn't want to have to whip out. But I do think Bald Eagle has a pretty decent chance in a matchup like this. It really depends on how aggressive Ghost can get early on, and based on his opening hand is not very aggressive. The Anivias can start to clean up the boards, and it looks like Shanghai is actually 0-1 on this Braum Anivia deck, which has been 7-11 over the course of the tournament. Though I don't think that's just Braum Anivia, I think that is just Shadow Isle Freljord as a whole, and we did see a couple of Endure Spiders in this tournament, so could be diluting the win percentage of the deck a little bit. But overall, yeah, I don't think Ghost has sort of the aggressive opener that he needed in order to, you know, sort of win this matchup. Not everything is decided by the early game. Of course, there is still opportunities for Ghost to come back into this one. We do see a couple copies of Captain Pharaon that could play in big for this. But right now, you do not want to see your opponent at 19 life going into turn 4 when you're playing a deck like this. Especially given that, you know, these hapless aristocrats still have spiderlings to pop out of them. He still has a draw to get off the sentry. Already has the Anivia available to him. Things are just not looking great for Ghost. Can accelerate to this Ash level up in a sort of impactful way, though. This massive 7-5 Ash. But without these hapless aristocrats getting picked up off the board, this Reckoning still doesn't offer an insane amount of value. You will just get 2 spiderlings out. You'll kill your own Omen Hawks. Your opponent will actually draw a card. And overall, this is one of the worst Reckonings you could probably take. Looks like Withering Wail is just going to, you know, Shanghai wants to do something on his turn, is going to take out the Trifarian Assessor, or the Trifarian Glory Seeker, sorry, as well as the Omen Hawk. And now it's over to Ghost, who picks up Brittle Steel number 2, another super unimpactful card in a matchup like this. And we could even just see Fury of the North to trade onto the Ash. The Brittle Steel not going to do anything. This takes his Reckoning off the table. Things are looking disastrous for Ghost here in game number 6. This, after what an incredible 2 games we witnessed over the course of games 4 and game 5, if game 6 just falls apart because of this terrible hand on the side of Ghost, it'd be a heartbreaking end to an otherwise phenomenal series. There is the Fury of the North, and all of a sudden half of Ghost, actually 80% of Ghost's hand is completely invalidated in trying to answer this. Doesn't even have a turn 5 play to follow up with. We'll have to wait until the Sejuani on the off turn too, so could even just float turn 6 trying to get the attack value off the Sejuani with the vulnerable, but I don't think that matters too much. Now we see a Braum out of Shanghai as well as the Anivia. Braum going to come down as it does have that Fury of the North backup. And Ghost really wants to get this Sejuani down to turn on Reckoning on the following turn, it seems. Will Frostbite the Braum. Could even go for the Calling Strike onto it, but if you're going for Reckoning on the following turn, I don't see too much of a reason to go for the Calling Strike, unless you are specifically trying to bait out a Fury of the North. which seems a little unlikely. You know, you did just see your opponent play one of those. That's really the only play you would be going for, or maybe denying the Mighty Poro, which also doesn't feel impactful if you're going for the Reckoning on the following turn, but Ghost is actually going to fire off this Culling Strike. Is pretty likely to get this Fury of the North out of Shanghai, and this could be a big Reckoning swing, but I don't know how impactful that is. As I mentioned, you know, we're still going to draw a card, we're still going to have a Spiderling, and Ghost just not having the 5 attack units, even if he finds an Assessor in a couple of turns, you know, which he's going to put himself even farther off of by this Avarosan Trapper, putting a Yeti on top. Actually going to see Glimpse Beyond instead. Picking up Tavern Keeper and another Glimpse Beyond. Looks like Shanghai just respecting the Reckoning, understanding that his board does look pretty juicy into that. And just, you know, decides I can find this Fury of the North value elsewhere. I don't really care about the Mighty Poro coming down. I'm not the aggressor in this matchup. I'm going to play it safe, play it calm, play to my win conditions, just, you know, kind of chill out and let my Anivia do the talking for me. And if Shanghai really wants to, you know, he can get the Braum back with this Rekindler. Though I think we are going to save that for the Anivia a little bit later. The more Anivias you can get out, the better. This is a very board-centric deck that Ghost is playing. Doesn't have phenomenal answers for the Anivia. You know, doesn't have any Obliterate, doesn't have any Return to Hand or anything along those lines. It looks like we're just going to see the attacks first, not wanting to risk this Anivia into something like a Challenger, into a Reckoning. And now we're going to see Fury of the North to actually trade onto the Sejuani. And these Brittle Steels have had absolutely no chance to find value for Ghost. I was a little curious to see if he's actually going to fire one off here, or it looks like at this point your best bet is to sort of save them for the Ash Lethal. Like, sure, you could just fire them off willy-nilly, and that'll tick you closer to the Ash Evolution, but there's not a whole lot of reason not to go for the Ash Evolution all in one turn, and Frostbite as many units as possible. Now the Ash coming down post-combat. A little bit more vulnerable than you'd sort of like it to be. This is actually a kind of juicy-looking Avalanche into an Anivia attack on the side of Shanghai, who actually runs out the Anivia first. And this could be as good as your Reckoning gets. Is going to Frostbite the Anivia. Now, you know, if you do want to attack with this Anivia, you open yourself up to getting blocked in a much more impactful way. It's much more likely that I'm going to block because my Ash wouldn't die from it now. And that sort of takes the Avalanche off the table for Shanghai, at least on this turn. But I don't think he's going to be too upset about it. His Anivia is pretty close to being leveled. He's got a lot of healing in hand. Still has this Rekindler, so might even want to let the Anivia die this turn, run out the Rekindler, and then have double Anivia going into turn 10. Reckoning can, you know, not even stall that out, as we are just going to get to see open attacks out of Shanghai on turn 10. And Ghost, even if he does manage to kill this Anivia, I don't think there's a world where he gets to kill both Anivias with this Reckoning. It will just be one of them falling, if that is sort of the way that we see the plays line up a little bit later on. But he really needs to get all these Anivias off the board and draw a freaking Trifarian Assessor and do it soon. His field, his hand is not looking particularly scary. Omen Hawk is pretty much a nothing play unless you can find an Assessor off the top that will then have enough mana, or will have enough attack to actually draw a card off of itself. Looks like Ghost setting up a big swing with the Ash. As I had mentioned, there are two Captain Pharaon in the deck, so being able to push as much damage onto your opponent like this is actually pretty impactful. Playing to your outs, Ghost understanding that it's going to take a miracle to come back into this game, but as we've seen already, miracles are happening everywhere in this particular match. Block onto the Ash. Could see Vile Feast onto the Omen Hawk. Could just see Withering Wail. Could actually just see Shanghai choose to go down to 8, understanding that, you know, if Captain Pharaon is the follow-up out of Ghost, I do have a bit of healing in hand. Not currently enough to get out of the triple decimate range, so Maybe we do fire off something here to prevent the 2 damage from the Omen Hawk. That is sort of the one chance that you have if there is a Pharaon coming out of Ghost this turn. Here we do see the Withering Wail. So that's going to at least take the 2 damage from that off the board, put him down to 11. And actually, no, this still isn't enough to survive the triple decimate. Would have actually had to use the Vile Feast to play the most health total efficiently, as that Withering Wail did only heal him for 1 since he was at 19. And now Avalanche going to come down, clearing out the rest of the board. So this is sort of why we saw the Withering Wail, though I think it doesn't make too much of a difference. The Anivia attack on the following turn would have more or less done the same thing. The question is Shanghai going to get greedy, fire off a Glimpse Beyond onto this Anivia so that he can Rekindler into double Anivia on the following turn? Looks like the answer is yes, and that does mean Ghost's Reckoning is going to get to at least take 1 Anivia off the board. And with triple Rekindler and the Harrowing in Shanghai's hand, I do not think there's anything Ghost can find to actually end this game before the Anivia's Harsh Winds overwhelms him. And just not finding the early aggression that he needed, not finding the Trifarian Assessors when he needed them, not finding anything. Enchanted Crystal Arrow will let him draw a card, but it's not gonna be enough unless it's Captain Pharaon. Captain Pharaon could still get him back into this game. That is sort of the one thing that Ghost has going for him. Did play patiently with those Brittle Steels, got a big push with the Ash turn, and does still have potential to get rewarded for it. What's the card on the top? Is it named Captain Pharaon? It is not. It is called a Yeti. I think its name is actually just Yeti. And that does mean Anivia is going to come through. That Avaros and Chapper is sort of playing against Ghost. I think I should have known that one was there too. So he is just going to play the 6/6 Yeti. And when we do see Rekindler number 2 come down, that could even just be a concession out of Ghost. He sort of needed the Pharaon right then and there. Could still find it. That's an Ash, though. That's not Pharaon. And I think at this point, Pharaon would be a little bit too late, as we're going to see another Rekindler developed. A lot of damage pushed through. And Ghost not having any opportunity to get damage down this turn. You know, we could even just see a block out of the Spiderling to make room for more Anivias. Things are, I'm pretty sure this one is just over for Ghost, and it's sort of a heartbreaking whimper at the end of an otherwise great series. Shanghai should be picking this one up 4-2, which feels really weird to say, best of 7s. Not really my casting forte, but it's been an interesting one to say the least. Yeah, Ghost, not happy with the top deck that his deck has actually given him. And at this point, I don't think anything can save him. Does have to block both Rekindlers to live at any amount of HP. And Pharaon off the top here still just dies to the open attack. Really needed it right here. That Elixir of Iron had to be the bailout. And instead it is arguably the absolute worst card in his deck in a situation like this. So Ghost, going to be falling in this one. Did fight admirably. This is his 3rd Korean sort of invitational experience. This is his second place in them as well. And that is the surrender. That is the tournament. Shanghai picks this one up 4-2, is your Riot Korea OGN Deck Masters 2020 champion. Congratulations to him, congratulations to all competitors, and congratulations to you, the viewer, for making it through such a long and arduous match. My name is Boulevard, and it has been my absolute pleasure to bring you an English broadcast of the Korean Invitational. The Deck Masters tournament here from OGN. Feel free to follow me on my socials below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time.